Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today we now have the patch notes for the Year 5 Season 3 PTS Phase 2 for the Division 2. We've been talking about this yesterday and for the past couple of weeks, but we now know what the new items are that are going to be coming with Season 3, and it has a theme to it that I really wasn't expecting, but I do think it's going to be quite interesting and kind of fun to play around with. So don't worry, we'll get right to it. If you are unaware, the PTS begins tomorrow. You can see right down here it says the start and end date. I believe right now you can preload it on UB Connect. I will be streaming this tomorrow. Exact timing to be determined. I will post it on the community tab, so keep an eye there. But yeah, tune in if you want to see me test all these new things. Should be a lot of fun. That said, 220 PTS Phase 2 patch notes. Let's get right to it. So, as far as new gear, we start out with the new brand set, which is called the Palisade Steelworks. The one piece gives you 10% armor on kill, 2-piece 60% health, and the 3-piece 1 skill tier. As far as the named items, you have the chest piece, which is going to come with perfect explosive delivery, which does have a pretty unique, different condition than the normal one. And that is that, as normal, you throw out the skill, and then 1.5 seconds after landing, it creates an explosion within 5 meters. But then it says afterwards, explosions will occur continually every 5 seconds, which I don't believe is how the normal version works. And the damage is going to scale with your skill tiers, dealing anywhere from 25 to 100% damage of a concussion grenade, and it applies to all of those following skills. So I think this could definitely be a pretty interesting thing to run. You know, back in the day, there were some builds that used explosive delivery on PvE content, like legendaries and whatnot. So I'm definitely interested to try that one out. We then have the name backpack called Proxy, and it comes with perfect tamper-proof. Now, this is following in the footsteps of, like, the perfect companion that we got a few seasons backwards jumping slots, because normally tamper-proof is on the chest piece, but this is going to be on the backpack. I don't think it would necessarily stack though, given the nature of tamper-proof, but it says enemies that walk within 3 meters of your hive, turret, remote pulse, or decoy are shocked. The arm time is 2 seconds, and the cooldown per skill is 8 seconds. So, not too much to say overall on the new brand and pieces here. Not, you know, the most applicable gear to my playstyle, the type of builds that I normally make, but I feel like some people will get a lot of usage out of this stuff, especially the explosive delivery. This will be interesting to test out. But yeah, that's the new brand. Moving on to the gear set, it's called Aegis. And I just want to say off the bat, for future reference, this is how you make a gear set, especially a tank gear set. So often in the Division's history, tank and armor-based builds have had one of two problems. They're either noticeably easily exploitable, or they unlock a pathway to vast amounts of damage when they should be having you invest in armor and tanking. And this, again, just at first glance, we're gonna have to test it, doesn't seem like it can be exploited all that easily or become, you know, really cheesy in PvP. And it actually focuses on tanking rather than giving tank builds damage. So I really like this in concept. As I said, it is called Aegis. The 2-piece gives you 70% health, which is a lot. The 3-piece 15% total armor. And then the 4-piece comes with the talent Stoic. You get 3% damage resistance for every enemy that is targeting you. And this is actually pretty interesting because for years, going back to Division 1, people have been asking for more of the game to focus on the threat mechanic, right? The aggro mechanic that is very prevalent in other MMO type games. And this is not necessarily expanding on that concept, but it is leaning into that fantasy where if you can attract more enemies to you, you get a greater bonus. And there are other items that we'll get to soon that can help you more with this, but this is a pretty interesting concept, I think. And it says the bonus is then multiplied by 1.x, where x is the number of agents in your group. Again, I think this is a really good modifier. Very similar to what they did with Nomad way back in the day. Classified Nomad, when it was out of hand, they made it so that it worked better when you're solo versus in a group, and that was kind of how they balanced the idea of the set. And that's what they're doing here. This shouldn't end up being a thing where someone can go in solo in PvP, have 8 players shoot at them, and they become invincible, right? It's supposed to be more powerful when you're with a group, when you can actually provide that tank role, and I really like that. So the chest talent then, the amplification talent is called Deceit. Enemies targeting your decoy also count towards the Stoic damage reduction bonus. This is nice because the decoy is one of the only surefire ways in the Division 2 to really gain that aggro and threat. And then the backpack bonus is titled Polyethylene Plating, which increases the damage resistance bonus from 3 to 4%. Again, that's a solid bonus, and it actually is very smart to put it on the backpack because this means that it can't really be abused with the ninja bike if people were to try and find a way to turn this set into just a really kind of broken damage reduction thing while they're still building damage. Anyway, I just think the overall design of this set, where the pieces are, everything is really solid, and I'm excited to try it out. As someone who doesn't usually play a lot of tank builds, I think this could be a lot of fun. Now we get to these poor guys. The rugged gauntlets are the new exotic gloves, and they come with the talent of Iron Grip. You get 50% recoil penalty reduction when hip firing, and you also get the same amount of a reduction when blind firing from cover. I'm sure someone out there is going to have fun with this. It's not for me. I don't think it's going to be for a lot of people. These are quite pointless, I think. If they wanted to lean more into like hip firing being its own playstyle, then sure, I guess, but that's not really a thing in the Division 2, so certainly I'll try it out on the PTS, but I'm a bit skeptical as of right now. Alright, so that was all the gear. Now we move on to the new weapons and talents, starting with the exotics, and this one is going to be pretty interesting. It is called the Vindicator. It's a new exotic rifle, and its talent is the Ortiz Assault Interface. While scoped, the weapon will highlight a random body section of each enemy. The weapon deals 75% weapon damage to highlighted body sections. And then it comes with the stats and mods of a 5 magazine size, 10 optimal range, stability, and accuracy. For me, this one is all going to come down to the design and what kind of attributes and what kind of archetype they assign this rifle, right? If it's something like the Dr. Home where the scope is okay, the handling is okay, then I could see this being pretty strong. Whereas if it's something like the Sacrum Imperium, even though I know that's a marksman rifle, but where it's just really slow to shoot and the scope really wasn't great at launch, then I don't think it's going to be used that much. But 75% is not nothing, and so I'm definitely curious to try this out. Could be interesting with some different combinations. This one will definitely be tested by myself on the PTS. Looking forward to it. All right, then we get to another exotic. We're back to getting 3 exotics per season, which is awesome because for a while they dipped down to 2. But anyway, we get the Mosquito, which is a new exotic pistol. They really have a bug theme when it comes to these pistols, don't they? But this one I really like because it can synergize quite well, I think, with the new gear set that we just talked about. So the talent is called Mosquito Song. Hitting an enemy applies a stack. Stacks are shared between players. At 10 stacks, the enemy will forcefully target the last player to apply a stack for 5 seconds. Stacks deplete every 5 seconds. And then if you activate the effect on an enemy, it will remove all stacks from all other enemies. So 2 things on this one. 1, for PvE purposes, this is going to be really cool. Again, it's leaning more into the aggro and threat side of things, which hasn't really been touched since, I would say, the franchise began. I mean, you know, you have the decoy, but you get my point. But 2, I really hope this has either a different functionality in PvP or it just doesn't work, because if I'm playing PvP and somebody shooting me with a pistol from behind and all of a sudden it whips me around 180 to target them when it says it forces the last player to target you, that would not be very fun. So I will test this out, certainly. I want to see how it works. Again, in PvE, a lot of fun. PvP, let's hope it's not what I think it is. And on here you get 2 mods of reload speed and accuracy. Alright, down here we have the new named weapons and talents. The new talent for this season and update is called Behind You. Deal 40% weapon damage to enemies that are not targeting you. Again, kind of mixed feelings on this. In PvE and in general, this sounds like a pretty fun one for more stealth-based combat if you want to be a sniper, if you want to do stuff like that. The question is kind of all about PvP, right? This is probably going to make a lot of PvE Dark Zone players more frustrated because it's a way to probably take you down faster if someone flags behind you, which has always been like the classic Dark Zone thing. I did see someone say, you know, restrict this to only being on marksman rifles and rifles. That would definitely help in that regard to not have it on like an AR or an SMG. We don't know right now if that's going to be the case or not, but I agree that would probably be a good balance mechanic. And somewhat supporting that, we have the 2 named variants, which is on an M700 and the M16, which no one's going to use this one, but it's perfectly behind you, which deals then 60% weapon damage to enemies not targeting you. So yeah, using the Brutus here with like a decoy, that could be pretty fun in PvE for sure. So interested to see how this one will play out. As with all of the rest of the things on here, we will test it thoroughly. Alright, well that is all the new stuff. Again, pretty solid, not really what we were expecting, but you know, we always like surprises, so that stuff should be interesting to try out. Then we get to the project resolve and balancing side of things. Let's go through it. Conflict, they removed all the turrets. We knew they were doing this already. There's no new idea put here, which they said they were looking into, so hopefully we get something good when this update launches. I guess we'll find out. They also previously communicated this, that the new rogue timer will be 3 seconds instead of 5 that it was in phase 1. As far as talents, again, they talked about the Dr. Home is going back to its original condition instead of the headshots. They are reworking, or not reworking, but nerfing the festive delivery in PvP, which I think is going to make a lot of PvP players happy given all of the problems that this item has had since it was introduced last month. So previously, whereas it would give you the same amount of damage on 2 enemies within 20 meters, now in PvP only, it is going to be that when you hit an enemy with the festive grenade, it will cause an explosion still around 2 enemies, but only within 10 meters, so half the range, and it deals half the damage of the original grenade. So hopefully, along with fixing the bugs with this item, this fixes its, whole problem in PvP. And hopefully for everybody who was saying the devs never listen and they're letting this thing go wild, I think they're trying to get it in rain, and hopefully this achieves that when Season 3 goes live. All right, they talked about Unbreakable before too. It's going back to its current form in the live game. This one is interesting. They're giving System Corruption a bit of a buff. Now, I'm going to have to go and look what exactly this does because I haven't used System Corruption in a while. But in theory, I think this is to still make the set worthwhile to run, even with the introduction of the Instant Armor Kit. And so that's a positive change. I saw people saying they need to either rework it or buff it. Again, this doesn't change the healing component, but it does give you more damage, so hopefully that makes it more worthwhile. I guess we'll have to test it out. And then they've given Intimidate a slight reduction from what it was in Phase 1, going down from 5% to 4%. All right, now they say that the list here of all the weapon balancing changes includes feedback from Phase 1, but I don't, we'd have to compare this list pretty extensively to find out. I do see the AK on here, which I don't think was there previously, so that's cool. But yeah, we're going to have to do some comparisons with that original list to see all the changes here. I will link all this stuff down in the description, so if you want to look through the patch notes for yourself, you certainly can. But at least some minor changes seem to be coming to the overall weapon balancing that they're planning on doing. They've also changed a few of the brand set changes that they had previously pitched. We're not going to go through every single one, but some of the important ones that I saw, they took Empress back down from 20% back to 10% skill damage, which keeps it in line because it's already kind of the best skill set, and so by raising it to 20, it was just going to give it an even wider gap, so I'm glad they reduced that. We get a preview of some of the armor regen changes, which they were talking about in the dev notes. Gila in Phase 1 was 3% here, and it's back down to 2, so I think that's good. Golan was up to 2 here, and it's down to 1.5, so in total, you're taking it down by 1.5% armor regen. Still going to be a buff from the main game. Like, you can still probably get a bit over 100,000 armor regen, which is a lot, but it should be a little bit more contained than it was in Phase 1, which is all I was saying they needed to do. So again, we'll definitely test it out, and that should be good. And what was the other one I saw? Oh yeah, Brazos. They took it up to 50% max size, which I feel like it was not in Phase 1. So that should be kind of fun if you pair with different things. I don't know. We'll try it out. All right, we're getting close down here to the end, I think. These are the ones that remain unchanged. They are adding the tinkering station into this phase. This was something they pitched back in December, but it wasn't in Phase 1. Basically, this is the idea of being able to recalibrate, optimize expertise on the go. It's in your menu, so we'll see how that works. They have merged recalibration and optimization into one menu, which is called tinkering, or tinker, I should say. And they did talk about this, where optimization can no longer be done to a higher value than what you have stored for that specific stat in your recal library. But to compensate, they say they reduce the cost by half, and you will no longer pay the full price for an incomplete step. So if you're only going by a small increment, it will adjust the price accordingly. So hopefully that's all good. They talk about the gear combat lock here. Combar lock, actually, which obviously has been hugely controversial. But the one important clarification they make here, because from their wording before, it seemed like they were just going to remove this feature entirely from PvP, but keep it in PvE, which seemed a little bit antithetical towards the original intention. But they say here that rogue players are still going to be subject to the overall gear lock, where when they're in combat, they can't switch. But if you're rogue and you're not in combat, you can still switch. So that's an important distinction for them to make, and I think that's better than what was seemingly being pitched before. Then if we get to Descent down here, some very interesting stuff. We get some details on what's going to be added into the NSA store. So they've added now the outfits in all 4 colors that you get in the Descent mode. You can now buy this for yourself or your main character from the NSA store, so that's cool. They added the new exotic, the Vindicator, to the NSA store. I don't know if this is going to be like there when the update goes live, meaning you could get it before you get it from the season pass, but that's interesting. They've added the UI to see the current rotation of talents. Again, they're creating these curated lists of talents that rotate each week, and you can now see that, which is good. And the button prompt is at the entrance for the mode, so that's where you can find that, and it shows you both the name and the duration, so that should all be good. They updated some of the project reward stuff, and known issues that the festive delivery talent description is not updated for PvP. And there you have it, my friends. I'm sorry if that was a little bit long, but I definitely wanted to go over that all in detail because I know a lot of people have been following along with these changes very closely. But yeah, that's a look at the new gear and everything that is coming in Year 5 Season 3, as well as the changes that they're making to Phase 2 of the PTS based on the feedback from Phase 1. Again, combat lock aside, because I know that is a lot of people's biggest issue with this whole update, I'm quite pleased with a lot of the stuff I see here. Again, a lot of the brand set changes seem sensible towards balance. The tinkering stuff, we talked about the Descent things there. Again, the new gear, some of it is a little iffy, like the the talent. The behind you talent, we'll see what that can roll on. These exotic gloves I don't think are going to be used much. But like I said, for the gear set, I'm very excited to try this out. As somebody who usually doesn't tank, this seems fun to me, and it seems quite balanced in its design and its approach, which I appreciate. But as always, we're going to get a much greater look at all of this stuff when the PTS goes live tomorrow on Friday the 19th. Again, I will be streaming it. Keep an eye out on the community tab for the exact timing. But that is mostly going to do it for me today, everybody. Let me know your thoughts on all of this stuff that we covered down below. What do you think of the new gear, the changes? Is there anything that they didn't address that you still think needs work? Let me know. And be sure to subscribe if you want more stuff like this. I don't think I said it earlier, so there you go. It's the obligatory subscribe notice. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back very soon, and I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.